Warning. This episode contains frank discussions of race and racism that some may find challenging to listen to. Listener discretion is advised. But it also contains stories of overcoming challenges that some may find to be inspiring. Enjoy.
On this episode of Race, Health, and Happiness, Dr.O speaks with actress Olunike Adeliyi about the importance of demanding that Hollywood recognize her for who she is.
I don't see color, stop it.
Right.
You need to see me. I'm beautiful and black and interesting and talented.
And how she overcame a very public incident of racism.
And then he was like, if you don't leave, you're going to be arrested. I go, arrested for what? Exactly. And he's like, I need somebody here right now. There's a woman here. She's black and she's threatening the organization. And that's when I went, oh.
There it is.
There it was. And then at that time, of course, I'm terrified because I don't know what's coming for me.
The Race, Health, and Happiness podcast is hosted by Dr. Onye, certified public health physician specialist and family doctor. The views expressed by Dr. O's guests are their own and do not necessarily represent her opinions or those of the podcast. And now, here's Dr. O.
Hi, my name is Dr. O, and welcome to my podcast, Race, Health, and Happiness. We live in a world where Black, Indigenous, and people of color are more and more aware of the blatant and subtle ways that systemic racism impacts our lives. And as a doctor, I'm interested in how that affects people's health. But this podcast is about how to stay healthy and happy despite all that noise. My guest today is Olunike Adeliyi. She is a Canadian actress, activist, mother, wife, philanthropist, and a student in African Studies at the University of Toronto. Olunike, who is of Nigerian Jamaican heritage, studied at the prestigious American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City, then returned to Toronto to pursue a film, television, and theater career. She has played Giselle on CBC's Workin Moms and has appeared on television series like The Titans, Flashpoint, and American Gods. She has been nominated for the 2021 Canadian Screen Award for her performance in the drama series Coroner. Olunike, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's so good. I've been looking forward to this. It's so nice.
As have I. Mm-hmm. And without bias, I do have to say that I am excited that you are Nigerian Caribbean like myself.
Yes.
I've had 2 guests so far. It's like unicorns.
Yes, I mean, for real. And that's what we clicked like that immediately, too, because we're like, oh, we get what that is, you know, because you're caught in between 2 very beautiful worlds that most would think are opposing worlds, but really we have so much more similarities than we do differences with the African world and the Caribbean world. We are the same people.
Yes.
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 And so actually I think about that. I said without bias. I'm totally biased. I think it is good to have all of those experiences and influences and look at the world differently.
Yeah.
And so, in this podcast, I always ask as my first question because it helps us to understand the essence of you. Mm-hmm. Given what you just talked about that intersection and having those identities, what would you say is your superpower?
Ooh, my superpower is self-care, always. And self-care for me comes with education. You know, I'm always informing myself of history, of present times. So I find that self-care for me mentally has to involve where I came from historically, right? My DNA, what's in that. And whether it's really wonderful things that came through, because of course tradition and all those beautiful things that come with history, it also comes with the woes of trauma, right? And so I double down in the self-care of taking care of myself while I learn. And it could involve also saging.
Okay.
It's getting up at ancestral hours between 4 and 6 and speaking with the ancestors to further inform my day or how calm I'm going to be throughout the day. Because, as we all know, people of color face so many different things throughout the day that is not flattering, and so meditation and devotion is a very big part of my life. And I'm the healer of the family, so I have to make sure that self-care is at the forefront. And believe me, I am a spa girl like no other. So,
I'm your sister.
Right. Like, it takes nothing for me to hit the spa. In fact, anytime I travel, anywhere I go, I try to find what their aesthetic when it comes to spas are. It's such a beautiful way of taking care of yourself. So yeah, that is my superpower.
I love
self-care.
that.
Yeah.
No, because we had an episode, actually, a bonus episode on radical self-care, really echoing a lot of what you just said. And even prior to that, when it comes to like morning routines and that kind of thing, that also came up in our podcast with Kika, who is our other sister of Nigerian Caribbean heritage. But exactly, especially as Black women, as racialized people, we enter these places and spaces, particularly in North America, where we are experiencing subtle harm, but sometimes it's a microaggression. It creates wear and tear. So being proactive about caring for self, valuing self, and then when we do that, we're able to when our cup is full, then we can help and to refill others, right?
Right.
But our cup must be full. So yeah.
Exactly. We can't just go around angst all the time. We've got to double down on what it is to take care of ourselves first before anything. And for me, that's always an alignment with God, the universe, and the ancestors. And so I'm able to pull through, because no matter what I would have tackled, whether you're tackling medicine or the entertainment business, there's always some form of pushback, some kind of resistance to being at the forefront, right? And so I'm not going to stop going after my dream. So while I go after my dream, I have to make sure that my mental health is good, my physical health is good, my emotional health is good. And so that's what I encourage others to do, no matter what you chase.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love how wisdom rotates, because what you just described, where you started with the intellectual and then you mentioned the emotional and then mentioned the mental and the physical, that is the medicine wheel here in North America from the indigenous peoples here. And so that is wisdom. I like it when it triangulates, because you've taken that from the African experience and your own lived experience. And then we know that there are people who have been here for centuries who, had it, and there's an alignment.
Absolutely.
There's wisdom there.
Absolutely.
So I love that. And you mentioned the industry. So why don't we, I like that we started from your superpowers, how you take care of you and arm yourself and, make sure you're rooted in ancestry and a sense of yourself as you go into this world, this industry that you work in. And so maybe that's a good place for us to start, actually, is thinking about, the film industry. And when it comes, it's no secret that, Black women, in particular dark-skinned women, have not had great representation on screen, particularly in Canada. But that's my observation from the outside. Yeah. So what has that been for you, like in your own lived, you know what I mean, through your skin, the skin you're in? How has that been?
I agree with you that Canada needed a lot more representation. We do have some, of course, we do. We have Tanya Williams, we have Karen Robin, we have Alice Seeley Smith. We have some really great performers here. But notice that when it came to Black female performers, we always had to look to them, to America. Because they had more of a platform. So that's why we revere the Ruby Dees and the Cicely Tysons and the Loretta Devines. Like, I know way more names on that side. Viola Davis, the list goes on, because that's what we've had to look towards. And that has to change. I believe it's changing because I think that Canada is seen, especially through this pandemic, that there is a lack. Yeah. And so they're doing what they can to catch up with that. But it's going to take them ruthlessly going after it. You know?
And with intention. So what was happening before then? Because why were we?
We were
you
tokens.
said there are people here.
Yeah, but we were tokens.
And why?
Because it ticked a box. It ticked the diversity box. Look, we're doing this. Look, we have some, but they're going to hire or put at the front of the screen what they know. That's really what it is. So if you're not hiring people of color to be behind the scenes as well, how are you going to see them in front?
So at the decision-making tables and everything like that, so behind the camera, there's also a lack of diversity.
Completely. And they can't write us.
Right.
So if you hire the writers, if you hire the producers that are people of color, then we will be able to inform you of our stories.
I see.
So in order to avoid that, they just continue hiring white, but then it doesn't reflect Canada. It doesn't.
No, absolutely. And so I'm wondering, so I'm going to come in from my lens of medicine, right? So in the field of medicine, it was really historically created by white males for males, and in specific, like, middle class, cisgender Christian, all of that, right? So that becomes the center. And so over time, so that kind of set the stage in which, I just realized that's a bit of a pun, but anyway, created the foundation for the systems of selection that exist today, where it's like, do you understand medicine? But the lens is, are you one of us? Now that's changing in medicine, because we've been part of that change, and there's starting to be more diversity. But the structures that existed really were created in a way to sustain a situation where you didn't have diversity and where there was huge resistance to change. Was that the case, or has that been the case in the film industry and TV industry, where even though there have been, more Black actresses, or maybe there were Black writers, or, other people, the system was structured in a way that it was really hard to get in? Or is it really just the numbers have been so low? Like, what do you think at the core of it, or the contributing factors? Not that one person. I think people think about the man, right? This one person who is blocking everybody. But no, it's like a number of factors. But how does that work in your industry?
I think it works. I think it's worked similarly. Okay. I think we were speaking about capitalism. Right, and who is at the top of capitalism, and I believe that the films have reflected that, right, in order to sustain what that imagery is, right, and so that is why when you do see people of color in the films, it's not always in the most positive light. There's many tropes that we fall under, and also, and it's. A lot of times it's usually the bad guy. So
racialized people playing the bad guy.
Right.
Really...
Think about it, cowboys and Indians, and when it after 9/11, when the bad guy now became Muslim. So it's set in place.
Hollywood and played out in Canada too, not just Hollywood.
Hollywood is Canada too.
Right.
You know what I mean? We all fall under the umbrella of Hollywood because they're, like I said, at the forefront, and they're going to put the narrative out that is best suited for who's at the top.
Okay. And so I'm going to dig deeper then, because in the United States, I don't know if it's because of the civil rights movement or their context, there started to be more Black representation. Yes. But that wasn't followed here in Canada. So they didn't follow that Hollywood standard of at least being intentional about Black representation. Or am I wrong?
No, because I mean, the majority of Canada is white. Right? The majority of, if you actually take a trip through Canada, it's pretty white. And but that doesn't mean that they wouldn't enjoy watching other people of color.
Exactly.
We have to stop assuming that they only want to see themselves. Because, I mean, we all are curious about each other. I believe so. And it has to be that way in order for shows like Kim's Convenience to be going on for as long as it did. 5 seasons is quite a long time. And so therefore they are curious, you know. We all are curious of each other and all the traditions and all the little quirks. And then we also realize when we do put other people on screen, people of color, a lot of our experiences are the same more than they are different, right?
Because we're human beings.
Right.
Yes,
Everybody's
yes.
got a grandma. Everybody's got to go to the dentist. Everybody wants to fall in love. We all have the same desires,
Right.
you know?
And so I wonder, because actually Kim's Convenience is a good example, because although it was very celebrated, in the aftermath, after it was finished, there's been a lot of controversy around the authenticity and the challenges, right? The negotiation in representation on the screen. Had you experienced any challenges in the industry, or even just anticipated challenges? Because there's also a lot of research to show that for Black and racialized people, even for a job interview, it's the anticipation of the racism sometimes that can be stressful. So for you, did you experience situations where you felt like the industry in and of itself posed a barrier, or you would have to work twice as hard, or worry about certain opportunities?
Yes, absolutely. I can't sit here and say that I haven't at least felt the energy. You know, people won't come out and blatantly say that. Like, say, for instance, I know I would have nailed a role. And it's like, there's, like, because I always give them an opportunity to dare to say no.
I
You know
like
what I
that.
mean?
Yes,
so you
yes,
show
yes.
up ready. And they would still have the feedback of, she's too exotic. That means too dark skin.
Wow, exotic.
Too exotic.
Okay, I had not heard that one.
At first, I was
Okay.
very thrown off because I was like, I don't even know what that means.
Pause. Did you catch that? She said exotic means too dark-skinned. Now we're getting into the phenomenon called colorism, which is a form of discrimination where lighter-skinned, usually racialized people experience privilege over their darker-skinned counterparts. Now, because we live in a society where whiteness means power and blackness defines the boundaries of the melanin spectrum, the darker you are, the greater the disadvantage. And it's not just on screen. American researchers have shown time and time again that within a racial group, people with darker skin earn less money, tend to live in worse neighborhoods, and are more likely to report worse health. Even a Canadian study recently showed darker-skinned Black people reported worse health than their lighter-skinned counterparts. And actually, white Canadians who had a darker skin tone were more likely to report worse health. So why am I saying this? As the great author James Baldwin said, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. Colorism is a problem that needs to be faced.
But I was like, see, I wasn't brought up that way. It's like, I wasn't, even in Jamaica, yes, it's a predominantly Black country, but there are so many different races there.
Yeah.
And so many different cultures and whatnot. And so I had an auntie that was blonde hair, blue eye, or uncle that was, from China. So I was just around a lot of diversity before coming to Canada. It's Canada I discovered what racism truly was.
Right.
Yeah, and so they're using these words that they think that are not offensive, but they are blatantly offensive to people of color. Yeah. And right now is the time that we're telling them, stop using that.
Right.
I don't see color. Stop it.
Right.
You need to see me. I'm beautiful and Black and interesting and talented. And why can I not have that experience in this specific script as anybody else would?
Yes. No, and so this is certainly a time of awakening and people speaking out and feeling safe to do so, right? Particularly after the death of George Floyd and the work done by activists like Black Lives Matter and other activists, the understanding of anti-Black racism. And I think we'll come to that in a minute. But I'm curious about how before this new change that we're seeing, this tide of change that we're all delighted to see, how did you cope with situations where you were told you were exotic or anticipated they might the way this might go, I might be told I'm exotic. What's your process for, because it's a tough industry,
it's
period,
really tough.
right?
And like I said before, self-care was really important. What I did was I reminded myself always that God picks my roles.
Okay.
I am very adamant about that, about God picks my roles. And so whatever your biases are about me has nothing to do with what my destiny is. And so if I didn't get something, at first, of course, it was frustrating. It's like, what's going on, And what I had done is, because I had spent some time in LA and New York and whatnot, and then I kind of just, one day I just said, I'm going to go to Jamaica for a while, and I did for a month or so, and then I went from Jamaica to Nigeria. I'm going to do that for a bit.
Double back home. Okay.
Trust me. And then I had a whole different perspective again of, it's like I rejuvenated myself of who I was.
Okay.
And what I brought to this, because I didn't want to sit in like, why am I not getting it? And why is that person getting it and I didn't get it? I don't want to live in that space, because that will completely sabotage my opportunities. Right? I want to show up as me. And if I don't get it, that's okay. I'm going to move on and I'm going to keep going, because eventually things are going to pop off. And I'm confident in that. And because of that confidence and because of keeping myself light, people see that. People see your bright light and they just gravitate. It's like moth to flame, It's like they just come for you.
No, we feel your energy.
The energy. It's all about energy. So I did not want to sit and bog myself down with, they don't like me because. What you think of me has nothing to do with me. It's not my business.
Right.
It's not my business.
Pause. Yes. Did you hear her say it? She just said, what you think about me has nothing to do with me. Actually, you know what? Stop the track, rewind, selector, and bring it back. Because I need y'all to hear this and feel this if you missed this.
I did not want to sit and bog myself down with, they don't like me because. What you think of me has nothing to do with me. It's not my business.
Thank you. Or as Beyonce says, carry on.
And so that is that self-care that I speak about, that you have to double down understanding that you have a destiny that nobody, including anybody at the top that makes decisions, they can't deny, they can't get in the way of. There's the divine energy that the universe provides for you. Your life is already written. So you have to go at it vigorously. And no one should be able to tell you no. Let the no's fuel you, and don't take no from anyone who doesn't have the power to say yes anyways.
I love that. Because I think that is amazing, because also, like, you're talking about an industry that, at times would tell you, like, for example, you're exotic. And so basically saying you're not good enough in some way, right? And I think for a number of, having worked with youth, right, in the arts, because I mean, you're half Nigerian, half Jamaican. So I probably don't have to tell you how common it is in our communities that everybody has to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer,
Girl,
blah, blah,
who
blah.
you telling?
So, okay.
That's the story of my life.
Okay.
I think my mom just recently said, and I was like, she's like, I'm so proud of you. I went, what? Say that again? Can I record it? You know what I mean? It's a big deal.
As she should be, as we all are of you and the work that you're doing. But I'm thinking about the flame that is required to keep going to do that when, sometimes it might not be in your household, I don't know, but in our communities, people are like, why don't you do this instead? Yeah. And you're saying, you know what, even if that person told me, I'm going to go to the next one and there's going to be a yes in my destiny.
Eventually.
And that
was the
power.
Right yes, too.
So powerful. And so you're able to hold on to that. But part of that was going home, like going, to Jamaica, to Nigeria, going to your roots and kind of digging those roots deeper so that you can't be,
Yeah.
the wind can't blow you. You've got your roots deep in.
And listening
That's
to my
powerful.
family and then the elders, that they are very good at letting you know your purpose and where you came from and the backs and the shoulders that you stand on, because they've built that way for you. And when you go at life with knowing that that support system is solid, that they fought so hard to get to where they are so that you can have what you have, that's more powerful than a no. It was a no for, well, who cares? You know what I mean?
Yes,
It's like,
yes.
my life, it was written.
And so speaking of those who have spoken up and powerful, so let's come back to the piece that you mentioned, because more recently there is a greater awareness. And I do, give tribute to, activism and those in the streets. There was a time where, it has been a time to really speak out, and it was incredibly effective. And so I am always grateful for everyone those who look like us and don't look like us, who have rallied during this time, because the ripple effects has been in a number of industries, and even in medicine itself, this greater awareness. And healthcare, the ripple effects of how it's going to positively change Black and BIPOC lives is huge. And so do you want to speak to, in the film industry and the TV industry, how you have seen the shift, because you've been in it for a minute. And then, after the what I would call the awakening, right? More people being woke. So what would you say is the situation now for Black, or those who are aspiring to enter the industry?
I think right now is a really good time for us. A lot of breakdowns that are coming out. It's it's having Black people at the forefront of that, and it's really great. I'm about to film a show called The Porter, which highlights the Black porters on the train in the 1920s. The civil rights, the beginning of the civil rights, really, and they were the first Black union.
Yes.
Yeah. So, a CBC and BET have collaborated to make sure that this happens.
Girl, wait, pause.
Right?
Pause. No.
Right.
Wait. Did you just say CBC and BET?
You see what I'm saying?
All right.
And not
Continue.
to mention, all of us that are the main cast, from Emil to Ronnie to Muna to me and Lauren, we're all dark skinned.
Wow.
That's the main cast. We're dark skinned, not light skinned.
Wow.
And that was a really big deal.
That's a huge deal because we don't see ourselves represented, right?
Yeah, and so we're so excited for this because we think that this is, I won't say the beginning because there's been other great Black shows.
Absolutely.
They've been great, but this is the after the awakening, after we watched the terrible situation that happened with George Floyd, but we also watched a surgence of people wanting to help in any way they can. And so with this new show, I think it's gonna really set off more shows to really come into play, right? I am predicting right now it's gonna be very successful because of the content. We have really great characters in there. We even have, and it's all like it's based on real people, like the Black nurses at those times.
And largely in my understanding, because I'm from Montreal and I know we have an international audience, so largely in Montreal, or was it, that's the history that I know, the Black porters in Montreal.
Chicago, they were
Quebec.
doing the Montreal, Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm
it's
on the other
cross-border.
side. I'm on the U.S. side because
Really?
I'm
Okay.
Queenie. I'm Queenie, and Queenie is a real person.
Okay.
And in the 20s, she was one of the biggest mob bosses.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right, but also an activist. She was the person who put out full page ads in the paper for informing Black people of their voting rights. And she was very blatant. She had the police on her payroll. You know what I mean?
Okay.
She was really, really powerful.
So then let's dive a little bit into beyond the film industry then, because you're talking about real lives and things that people changed and people who spoke out. And so you are also somebody who has spoken out, and you have also experienced those of us who are racialized, especially Black people, everyday racism. And so I want to take a moment to zoom into your own story.
Yeah.
And your own experience, if you feel comfortable. Speaking on your experience of racism a few years ago at a theater here in the city of Toronto, in Canada. Some racism.
Yeah, that was a very interesting time in my life too, because I think that's the time that I also found my public voice.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was scary, and I had to speak through the shake, because I found myself in an injustice, and that could have also harmed my life.
So do you want to maybe tell our audience what happened?
Well, I went to the establishment and I questioned them about a policy that didn't make any sense.
And how long ago was this?
So I feel like it's like 3 years, maybe 3 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, it feels like it was yesterday because it's so potent. But but I went because it was a part of my self-care. I date myself on Fridays, right? So
take note. Yes. You just say that so casually.
Right.
Yes.
So whether I go to the movies or I go to
Date
dinner,
yourself on
because especially with all the schoolwork and stuff, right after classes, I'd head to them. I love
and as a
movies
mom,
so
that's
much.
Yes.
Okay.
So you are in your self-care
I'm in my
mode,
zone, and I
your
needed
zone.
to see this specific film because it was Loving. It's called Loving, and it was based on discrimination, and it was based on the interracial marriage being illegal in the 50s, right? And so there's this couple, their last name is Loving. So Ruth Negga, who is the lead actress on that movie, she was nominated for an Oscar at that time. So I was like, I've got to see it before I watch the Oscars. And that was the only theater that was showing it. So I rush over and I'm so excited to see this. And they have this policy that I cannot go in with a bag. And I was like, well, I don't understand. This is my personal bag. And what I found the injustice is I was like, here are all these white women that were going into the theater with bags bigger than mine. And I said, could you tell me why you don't want me to go? And they're like, well, we have a thing against backpacks. I go, why? Is it like for safety, bombs, or anything like that?
Okay, so they had bags and you had a backpack, but your backpack is functioning as a woman as your purse.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're like, oh, we don't want anybody smuggling any food and alcohol. I go, oh, if that's the situation, that's okay. I go, you could just look through it. And they're like, no, we have to take it from you. And I go, well, that's a problem because I have
it's
my
your purse.
I have my personal things. I go, do you have a lockup? They're like, no, we'll just put it behind the counter. I was like, okay, so then do you have anything that is going to make sure that if it's vandalized, I'm reimbursed or anything?
Right, yeah.
They're like, you know what? We're not selling you the ticket anymore. And I was like,
wait, what?
Exactly. Just like 0 to 100 real quick. I was like, what? Huh? And I turned around and I talked to her. I was like, did you hear what's going on? Did you hear what's going on? And then she was like, it's none of my business. I'm not involved, of course.
Wow.
And so at any of this time, I was not thinking racism.
Right.
At any of this time,
okay,
I was not. And so I was like, let me speak to your management, please. Let me speak to the person in charge. And she's like, there's no one in charge right now or whatnot. And I was like, okay, give me a number, something.
Right.
Never raised a voice. We don't really do that because we understand what could come with that, right?
Oh, yes.
Or right?
Well, the angry tropes, black woman comes
of course.
with that. Yeah.
And so they make us suppress ourselves and what we really want to feel.
Pause. What we're talking about here is the angry black woman stereotype, which even has its own Wikipedia page. It emerged from the legacy of slavery and has been reinforced through American television. Black psychologists have hypothesized that this false depiction of black women as angry, domineering, and irrational may be due to a misinterpretation of the coping mechanisms and survival skills developed by black women in the face of social, economic, and political oppression. But this stereotype of the angry black woman is used to silence and shame black women. The health impact is really what I want to point out because it can be damaging to health and well-being when black women might suppress their anger later down the road, leading to anxiety and distress because of those same repressed emotions. So I just want to say, dear fellow black women, you have the right to be angry. We have the right to be angry, but it is also our birthright to experience joy. So please remember, Your feelings matter. Your health matters. Our feelings matter. Our health matters.
Anyway, out of nowhere, a man comes out of the back and he tells me to get the F off the property.
What?
The full F word. And
In
I went,
front of
everyone. And I went, what's going on? And then he was like, if you don't leave, you're going to be arrested. I go, arrested for what exactly? And it just threw me. I was just like, what are you talking about? Arrested for questioning a policy? Wow. And then he's like, yeah, I'm calling them right now. He calls them, and then he
calls
calls them
because you asked for their policy on bags. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And
please
he
go
called,
on.
right? I called, and he's like, I need somebody here right now. There's a woman here. She's dressed in all black. She's black, and she's threatening the organization. And that's when I went, oh.
There it is.
There it was. And then at that time, of course, I'm terrified because I don't know what's coming for me.
Oh, well, it's the police, and we know
Right,
what
but
that
I don't
means.
know what
Yeah,
energy
no, I'm just saying,
is
as a
coming.
black person,
Right.
yeah,
I don't
that,
know.
there's that
But I
anticipation
also
and fear.
had to stand my ground, and I was like, I'm going to stand right here. And at that point, I stopped speaking completely.
Okay.
I just stopped speaking, and I just stood there and I just waited because it was like, yeah. And then when the police came, he was great. He was really great.
Okay,
and he was
well,
like,
that's
what's
good.
going on
Okay.
here? I go, I don't know. I really don't know an officer. So I think at the counter, they might be able to inform you a little bit more. And when he went and he came, he's like, yeah, they said they have a policy and that, they don't want you on the property. And I go, okay, that's fine. But the way I was treated it was racist. It was completely uncalled for. Because I don't understand why they would call you because I was questioning a policy. He goes, these people have a problem with a lot of people, and we're always called to this theater too. And I go, that's interesting. I go, okay. Well, he goes, I could take you home if you'd like. I go, no, I'm not pulling up in no cop car to my house.
Right.
But then,
But you were still lucky because as black women, although our experiences are not like black men,
Yeah.
that could have gone
It could have
very differently.
very
Like,
left.
This is not a joke.
Right.
Where, it's a black woman is threatening here, remove her from the property.
Right.
So I just want to add, it's fortunately you had a very nice human being who happens to be a police officer
Thank
who had
goodness.
dealt with the situation. But that could have ended very differently.
Very differently. And as him and I were walking out, he understood what I was experiencing because a white lady, she said, it's better not to fight the system, dear. And we both turned to her and he was like, oh, wow. I go, right. I go, it's okay. I have a platform. And so I went and
It's better
I
not to fight this.
the
Well, it's
system,
better
dear.
for white supremacy if we don't
I
fight
went,
the
she
system.
just said
Yeah,
that. Wow.
she
And so
just-
that's when I put it on my platform of the experience that I had, and then it just went viral. And then,
And what platform? You mean social media?
yes,
okay.
I wrote it on Facebook
Okay.
and Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
and then it took on a life of its own. Because what now it was pulling up all the people that have also felt that they've been attacked unjustly there, supporters of because they knew my character, they'd already known my character, and they were like, why would anybody treat Olunike this way? Like, she's nothing but love and joy. Like, there's something wrong here. And all the people he's accosted, he's harmed disabled people, older people, racialized people. Like, he's just a very angry person. And so for years, people have been trying to get the business out of the community because of the treatment that it comes with. Yeah, so it uprooted a whole thing.
You had a track
and
record.
along with that came a lot of the naysayers, even a lot of people in my own community saying, oh, she's pulling the race card. And I went, wow. And it was such a stressful time because I knew I had to stand there and stand my ground, and all the newspaper outlets were coming and they were trying to get the story, and they would also report it the way they wanted to and not the way it was. And I was very disappointed in the media. It's only a very, very few that got it right. Mm-hmm. Very few.
And I mean, we know in medicine there are biases, and more in journalism it's coming out about the biases, right?
Yeah.
But so, you experienced this, really emotionally violent situation that fortunately didn't result in like physical violence with the police. So that was good.
Yeah.
But then, it goes out to the world, and that, puts you in a vulnerable space.
Extremely.
And then, yes, you describing getting, critiques from mainstream society and, within Black communities, it seems. So how did you cope with that situation where you exposed an experience of racism and then now had to deal with the
backlash?
Yeah, the backlash and just the voices, right?
Yeah.
Like everything going on, or questioning yourself. So, or were you like, how
I
was
was
that?
questioning myself all the time.
What was that
for
internal
sure. Like,
process?
Should I have done that? I
for
don't
you?
know. What I had was a community of people. I have really incredible supporters, family, friends, my professors here at UFT.
Okay.
You know what I mean? My professors at UFT were so supportive, and they kept saying, you're doing the right thing. They would bring in the newspapers, I'd be on the front of it or wherever they'd find it, and they'd be like, we are so proud of you for doing this, because you used your platform for the right thing. And you know, no matter what comes at you, know that you have helped somebody, you've helped somebody by giving them the strength to use their voice when something like this happens, to voice their opinions on racial injustice. And so know that that was what that purpose was. It wasn't to solve anything, but it was to help to empower.
And inspire.
And inspire.
Yeah.
And so, and just that, and a lot of hot baths.
That's self-care, but you talk about you have your own village, right? Like,
I have a
we don't
village.
just talk about village being that physical space or only the one back home, where in North America you create your own, you know what I mean?
And
one of our guests, Selena Caesar,
I didn't have to do the back and forth with people. I didn't have to justify. I didn't have to tell them, no, you don't understand. No, because the community, my community did that for me. That's how I knew I did the right thing.
Right.
I knew it inside as it was happening, but I knew once my village rallied around me, I said, yeah. And for that, I couldn't go back into any other way of living anymore. Right. And also, the beauty of it, the powerful roles came.
Really?
And my ability to say no, and that was a full sentence, to projects I didn't want to be involved in.
No was a full sentence.
No was a full sentence.
No, because
passing. This doesn't. I need a legacy. I need legacy, and so they respected that. It came with the respect. So I was like, wow, okay, speak even though your voice shakes.
I love that.
Speak your truth.
And your voice then became amplified. So it really is so important to speak your truth, and that is how we see your light, right? Like your true, authentic self.
Yeah.
And so I think that is a beautiful lesson for those who are presently working or, still students or that kind of thing, but really trying to find those moments where, like you said, speaking beyond the shake, like
Absolutely.
and then turning to your village, being intentional about turning towards those who are supportive of you as opposed to those who are criticizing, because you didn't spend your time
They also
fighting
don't
and justifying
know you,
yourself.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
So
like,
to every troll on the internet, you weren't trying to like have them validate you.
No.
You know who you are. And so these are the things, these are those pearls, these are those lessons that we can walk with. And you mentioned the hot bath, so we take note of that.
Yeah. Spiritual hot bath, and just release it in there. It's like a baptism.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so thinking about that, then we're coming, to a close, and I think you have given us so many pearls and gifts today around self-care and resisting. And I always say, resistance and resilience are, basically best played as team sports.
Absolutely.
And so you have found your ways of
My
being,
sweet spot.
your sweet spot, and having your intentional village, or even going back home to get it. But of all these things, one of the things that I always like to ask also in the end is, what brings you joy?
My family. My family does. We have this canvas that sits above the bed. Like, as we wake up, we see it. It says, we decided on forever. Oh. And so we wake up with a lot of joy, and there's a lot of tickles and kissing. My husband's very silly, so he's jumping on top of all of us all the time. And it's really nice it's really nice to have family, because at the end of the day, that's who you come home to. That's how the self-care is furthered. It's the one thing I've always wished for, really, is that I had this situation where I can leave everything outside, and here are these people that know me so deeply that get to have me completely, and it's all our silliness is played out. I sometimes share it on social media. A lot of times I don't, but I put little nuggets out there, and people are like, "Oh my God, you guys are so cute!" And yeah, it's important to bring joy, and I think family is everything.
Thank you for that, and being intentional about those around you who love on you and you love them, and having that and seeking that. Some of us don't all have that, but seeking it, because as you say, it's so important. Oh my goodness, thank you for these gifts that you have given us today. Thank you, Olunike. We are so grateful for the time that you've spent with us.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you.
The Race, Health, and Happiness podcast was created by Dr.O Norum, and she's our host. The show is produced, edited, and engineered by yours truly, Dr. Carl Cabasel. Our technical producer is Obadiah George. Awit Siam is our research and resource manager, and Sindhu Senthil Mohan is our medical research consultant. Promotions coordinator is Jordan Gibson, and social media coordinator is Latoya Powell. Javiera Gutierrez Duran is our logistics coordinator, and JL Joseph is our production intern. The RHH theme song, it's composed and performed by Gold Keys, and graphic design for the podcast is handled by Veronica Ng. We'd love to hear from you. You can connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at RaceHealth&Happy. And check out the show notes. Our website is RaceHealth&Happiness.com. Thank you for listening to Race, Health, and Happiness, and please subscribe to us anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. I'm Dr. Carl Cabasel, and we'll talk with you soon.